Hello everyone, let's talk about the human urinary system. The purpose of the urinary system, also called the renal system, is to filter the blood, creating urine as a byproduct. The kidneys are the main organ of the urinary system. One kidney sits on each side of the spine. The kidneys filter the blood by removing waste and excess substances into the fluid called urine. The adrenal glands sit on top of each kidney and they produce various hormones. The hormone used in the urinary system is called aldosterone, which helps the kidneys regulate sodium, water, and potassium. Urine flows from the kidneys to the bladder through the ureters, and the bladder stores urine until it is disposed by leaving the body through the urethra in a process known as urination. Now, let's take a closer look at the kidneys. The area of the kidney where the arteries, veins, and nerve enter is called the hilum. The renal artery supplies blood to the kidneys, where it is then filtered. Then the filtered, deoxygenated blood leaves the kidneys through the renal vein. The renal nerve will receive signals from the brain that regulates the kidney's function. The renal pelvis is the first area of the kidney. It primarily acts as a funnel for urine to go to the ureter. The ureter brings urine from the kidneys to the bladder, where it is stored until it leaves the body. The renal cortex is this outer portion of the kidney, where filtration occurs by using nephrons. We will go into more detail on this shortly. The renal medulla is this inner part of the kidneys that have some parts of nephrons that assist in concentrating the urine by maintaining the salt and water balance of the blood, as well as transporting the urine. These wedge or cone-shaped sections are called the renal pyramids. They house parts of nephrons like in the medulla, and they also have collecting ducts that bring urine out of the renal pyramids. In between the pyramids are renal columns. They provide structure and space for blood vessels to pass through. The renal papilla are regions where collecting ducts from renal pyramids converge to create a papillary duct that channels urine to the minor calyx. And the minor calyx is these small areas leading to the pyramids that transport urine to the major calyxes. Major calyx are the areas where the minor calyx converge together, and it continues to transport urine to the renal pelvis. The kidney is surrounded by dense connective tissue called the fibrous capsule, or renal capsule. It helps support and protect the kidneys. Now, let's talk about nephrons. So simply put, a nephron is a tiny unit that filters the blood in the kidney. The renal cortex contains the parts of the nephrons that carry out the main filtration of the blood, while the parts in the renal medulla mainly absorb water and ions to further concentrate and transport the urine. Each kidney contains about 1 million nephrons, which gives the renal pyramids the striped appearance. Let's go over the main components of nephrons. The filtration process starts by having the Efferent Arteriole bring blood into the glomerulus. The glomerulus is a network of capillaries that forces the blood through a membrane. Only small particles and water make it through the barrier, so blood cells and larger molecules like protein don't pass through. The water and smaller particles that pass through the membrane are called filtrate, and this filtrate is collected inside the Bowman's capsule, sometimes also called a glomerular capsule. Meanwhile, the filtered blood is brought away from the glomerulus by the efferent arteriole. Next, the filtrate travels down the proximal convoluted tubule, where the peritubular capillaries reabsorb nutrients in the filtrate back into the blood while excreting waste from the blood into the filtrate. Then the filtrate enters the loop of Henle, this U-shaped loop. The filtrate moves down through the descending limb of the loop of Henle, which mainly reabsorbs water from the filtrate. Then it will move up through the ascending limb, which primarily reabsorbs ions like sodium, potassium, and chlorine. The loop of Henle can reabsorb water and ions through blood vessels called Vasa recta. These blood vessels slowly carry blood along the loop of Henle, creating a concentration gradient that helps concentrate the urine by reabsorbing water and ions. The filtrate moves from the loop of Henle to the distal convoluted tubule, which helps balance the pH and electrolytes. Then lastly, the filtrate, called urine, enters the collecting duct, which transports it out of nephrons and into renal pyramids, where it eventually makes its way to the bladder and leaves the body by urination. So that's how nephrons in the urinary system works. Let's recap how urine is made. It starts by having blood enter the glomerulus and pass through a membrane, filtering out small particles and water into filtrate. The second step is reabsorption, where the majority of nutrients and water in the filtrate get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, which concentrates the filtrate, or urine. The third step is secretion, where excess nutrients and waste products leave the blood and enter the urine, which further concentrates it. Then the last step in urine production is excretion, where the urine leaves the nephrons through collecting ducts. Typically, urine is composed of about 95% water. The second largest component is about 2% urea, which is a product of the body excreting nitrogen. The remaining 3% are other waste products like hormones, proteins, and metabolates. These concentrations will obviously fluctuate depending on several factors like diet and health. That is the brief overview of the human urinary system.